Hello, folks, and welcome back to twitch.tv/games with Nick. We're doing it. We're gonna finish this game. Spoilers, of course, abound. That's why I started the stream as a separate stream. Watcher beware. Now, this is the final part, so I'm not gonna summarize everything we've done. We're just gonna go right into it. Pluto, Father of Riches, grant me an audience. Hades, Lord of Many, grant me an audience. Osiris, Lord of Silence, grant me an audience. Nurgle, the Fierce One, grant me an audience. And here we go! Yes, we're going full sci-fi. Gods are aliens.
And here you are. Allow me to introduce myself. As you have already gathered, I've been known by many names. Nergal to the Sumerians, Osiris to the Egyptians, Hades to the Greeks, and Pluto to the Romans. But the one constant through it all has been my title, God of the Underworld. And I've been watching you with curiosity, mortal, ever since your arrival. You are unlike the others, aren't you? And what is more, you carry a weapon that was never intended for mortals to wield, and you do it so brazenly. But there will be time for your reckoning later. First, as a reward for undoing the desecration of my obelisk, I will allow you to satisfy your curiosity. Ask what you will.
What is your story?
My story is many thousands of years long. You will need to be more specific. What do you wish to know?
You're a god?
It is a matter of perspective. God is a label I was given by you mortals, not one I gave myself. Your ancestors revered me because to them, my knowledge and technology made me incomprehensibly powerful, just as you might seem so to an insect. But despite all that, there are rules even I must obey.
Why do you look and sound like a man?
My kin and I all adopted this form long ago, so that we might better understand and communicate with your kind. In time, we grew fond of the sensory delights it affords: desire, joy, ecstasy, even rage and sorrow, while an acquired taste can be addictive.
May I see your true form?
No. Long ago I swore to Persephone that I would remain in this form for as long as we remained among your kind. I must honor that.
Who's the woman on your left?
This is my beloved. Like me, she has been known by many names. Ereshkigal to the Sumerians, Isis to the Egyptians, Persephone to the Greeks, and Proserpine to the Romans. Or perhaps you might know her as the goddess of springtime, the cycle of life and renewal. Your gaze lingers too long.
Who's that on your right?
That is my servant. You would have met by the river, though she wears many faces and goes by many names. Kumutubal to the Sumerians, Kirti to the Egyptians, Charon to the Greeks, and Charon to the Romans. Her role is to ferry souls between the mortal world and this one, and to make their transition as seamless as possible. For that, she earned herself the infamous, if erroneous, moniker, the Fenrir. We will talk more later. For now, ask your questions.
Let's talk about something else.
As you wish.
What is this place?
It has come to be known simply as the Underworld, and it exists because of a wager I made long ago.
What was the wager you made?
That is a long story, one that began over 3,000 years ago and continues to this day. You see, long ago my kin and I set out from our home on Elysium to search for other forms of life among the stars. We discovered your planet and witnessed your kind evolving from primates into something lawless and barbaric. You all but destroyed yourselves, your 2 short lives being extinguished by violence and ignorance and disease. Yet Proserpina saw raw potential in you, and persuaded the rest of us it would be squandered without our intervention and stewardship. So we revealed ourselves to your people in a place called Sumer. We offered guidance in agriculture, toolcraft, and law, and you called us gods. For a time we flourished, but soon you were too many for us to oversee. And as you spread from that cradle of civilization, we saw something disturbing. We had sown the seeds of dependency and confusion, and soon you returned to your old ways of violence and ignorance, this time in our name. My kin had seen enough, and gave up on your kind, condemning you as barbaric and chaotic, scarcely more than animals. We began preparations to return to Elysium, our home world, a utopia unspoilt by conflict and unimaginable in its beauty. But my Proserpina could not bear to abandon your kind without guidance, and knowing it would force the rest of us to leave her behind, she made an extraordinary sacrifice. She gave up her immortality.
The downside of the end, the trending is that it's a bit of an info dump right at the end.
And so she began her inescapable trajectory toward death. Horrified, I acted swiftly. I placed her in suspended animation, in a deep frozen sleep, to prevent age and sickness from claiming her. And then I pleaded with Proserpina's father, who the Romans called Jupiter, to bring her with us to Elysium. It was and is my hope that once there, we might one day learn to undo what she has done to herself. But he refused. I did everything I could to persuade him, but he would not relent. He would rigidly uphold his final pronouncement. Humans were unworthy of ascension to Elysium, and no exceptions would be made. But seeing that I was aggrieved, he proposed a wager, the terms of which were as follows. If even one human city could prove itself capable of living without sin for a single year, then Proserpina and all of humanity would be permitted to join us in Elysium. My part would be to remain behind, the last of my kind, to watch over you, without interfering, and to sit in silent judgment. And so my reward has been to languish here, enduring a 3,000-year winter, waiting for the day your kind proves itself worthy of her faith in me, so that I might take her with me to Elysium and unthaw my goddess of springtime. And here I am, after all this time, still waiting.
Warrior kin.
There were also gods who, like me, have been known by many names, but perhaps you knew them by their Roman names. Our leader Jupiter, as well as Neptune, Saturn, Juno, Minerva, Mars, Venus, Apollo, Diana, Vulcan, Vesta, Ceres, and of course, my beloved Proserpina.
Who built the city?
As the first wave of your kind arrived from Sumer, I had them build a city in their own fashion, so that they might be comfortable and recreate their lives here. I had them build the entrance as a vertical shaft leading to baths, to cleanse them of the sins of their former lives, and to prevent escape. I watched wave after wave of Sumerians arrive, and as their civilization declined over the centuries, they were replaced by Egyptians. Of course, believing themselves to be the superior civilization, the Egyptians promptly built over what had been built before, and made all the same mistakes. After another 1,000 years, the Greeks began to arrive, and then the Romans, and they all did the same thing. They built upon the underworlds of their predecessors, renamed their gods, and ensured their foundations were forgotten.
How did you decide who comes here?
To ensure the wager was fair, it was important that my subjects were chosen at random. To this end, I had my servant distribute 1,000 tokens fashioned from the silver, a rare element at the time, across all of Sumer. Whoever died while in possession of one of them would be located by my servant and ferried to this place, with no memory of how they arrived. As the tokens were discovered, they were traded, smelted, and fashioned into trinkets, and eventually coins, spreading to Egypt like seeds on the wind. Later, when they spread to Greece, they would come to be known as Charon's Obol, or as coins for the ferryman. Some placed coins in the mouths of their dead, hoping they would awaken here, though they had no way of knowing which coins were fashioned from the original tokens. In fact, almost all of the tokens are accounted for, only 2 remain. And so after this wave destroys itself, as it is destined to do, your kind will have squandered the last of its potential to ascend beyond this rock, and Persepolis along with it.
How did humans learn about the underworld?
It is a regrettable story. One of the first men who came to this place was a king of Sumer, and a troublemaker. To be rid of him, I returned him to his people, on the condition that my servant erased his memories of this place. But the erasure did not take completely, and he told stories of this place as if describing memories of a dream. His tales were committed to writing, which came to be known as the Epic of Gilgamesh, and his words were twisted and distorted over generations. Later, the Egyptians would adapt Sumer's stories of the underworld, making them wildly intricate and labyrinthine. Their Book of the Dead and Book of Gates bore less and less resemblance to this place, in their priests' pursuit of profit. Then, when the Greeks began to arrive, they proved far more cunning, and in a series of incidents that will not be repeated, 5 of them escaped. A warrior named Heracles, 2 kings named Sisyphus and Theseus, a poet named Orpheus, and a Trojan named Aeneas. They each told embellished tales of this place, how to get here, and how to escape. And so from Sumer to Egypt, Greece to Rome, your kind has always told each other stories about this place, though each story contained only a secret of truth.
Let's talk about something else.
Of course.
Are you responsible for the Golden Rule?
That is merely the name your people have given to it, but yes, it is my doing.
Why turn people into gold?
That is a story dating back to the very first wave. After the Sumerians finished building their city, the self-declared ruler threw a banquet to celebrate. Now this man was unmarried, and many women were vying to become his wife, a prestigious position of power and influence in a new world. Of all the women, 2 were particularly ambitious. Both were beautiful, and both arrived at the banquet wearing eye-catching dresses and painted faces, their hair woven in elaborate fashion. The first woman, recognizing that she would require an advantage to win the ruler's affection, draped herself in jewelry, ornate necklaces, bracelets, and rings fashioned from gold. Seeing this ostentatious display, the second woman grew envious, for she had no such jewelry at her disposal. She prayed aloud to any gods that would listen to cover her in gold, and when her prayer went unanswered, she took matters into her own hands. While the others indulged at the banquet, the second woman summoned the first for a discussion in a quiet place. She checked that nobody was watching, and pushed her rival from the top of the ziggurat, where she broke her neck on the rocks below. But I was watching, and I decided to answer her prayer. I took the golden bow left behind by Diana, and I shot that woman in the heart, covering her from head to toe in a layer of molten gold. And I left her to stand there, that she might serve as a grim reminder of what befalls those who sin in my domain. But that was not enough, for the entire city was tainted by her sin, and the wager could no longer be won. So I had no choice but to wipe the slate clean. I gilded them all, to make way for a new wave, and began the wager again. And to this day, each of them, and all who came after, line the halls of this city, inanimate but conscious. Suspended in time with only their sight and hearing preserved, so they may bear witness to and lament the folly of your kind for eternity, as silent golden sentinels.
That sounds fucking terrible. Good God. So you're responsible for destroying all these lives?
I give your kind a second chance at life, as well as ample warning about my law. And when you disobey, and you always disobey, you force my hand, bringing terrible suffering upon yourselves. And so you ask if I am the one destroying your lives. And I say, no, you destroy yourselves. I am merely the means by which you do it.
Where did these golden bows come from?
When my kin departed, they left behind many relics which I inherited. A consolation prize of sorts. The golden bow originally belonged to one of my kin, who the Romans called Diana. As my collection of golden statues grew, I chose the most ferocious among them, and equipped them each with a duplicate of her bow, and tasked them with hunting down the Forsaken at my behest. They became known simply as Furies.
Why do you consider a sin?
I've always considered that the cornerstone of morality is the ability to determine right from wrong on one's own. No attempt to lay out rules like your Code of Hammurabi or your 12 Tables of the Roman Republic can ever cover all possible scenarios. This should come as no surprise to you, since the core principle has been expressed in many forms by many of your civilizations. The Egyptians made a rudimentary attempt with do to the doer to make him do. The Greeks refined it with avoid doing what you would blame others for doing. The Roman Stoics added, treat your inferior as you would wish your superior to treat you. Even the so-called cultists hiding among you often say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It is the simplest of concepts, and each one of you is born with the faculties required to apply it to any situation. Yet none of the peoples who expressed this rule were able to uphold it. Curious, is it not?
That principle is not as easy to apply as it sounds.
For you, perhaps.
How do you know when people sin?
I'm able to commune with all of the statues in the city. Their ears are my ears, and their eyes are my eyes.
Is Proserpine connected to the statues in some way?
If she was still conscious, I suppose she could, but she's not. Why do you ask?
Oh, no reason.
Then what an odd question.
Yeah, I'm a kook that way. I've seen terrible things here that you didn't consider a sin. How could you let them happen?
Do you plan to speak in sweeping generalizations, or are you going to give me an example?
Suicide.
Ah, yes, the debt bondsman. Taking one's own life is a self-directed act. It is not one that is done to others, however they may be affected by it. Therefore, it cannot be said that one who commits suicide has done anything unto others.
It seems like an extremely literal interpretation of this rule.
Applying this rule always requires us to interpret the meaning of the words. A literal interpretation helps to minimize the ambiguities of your primitive language.
If our language is full of ambiguity, doesn't that make the rule inherently subjective and unreliable?
Supposing you're right, then my law has been broken, and I should turn you all to gold immediately. Is that what you want?
Never mind.
Now tell me, what other sins do you believe I have overlooked?
Debt bondage.
You speak of the moneylender. How is that inconsistent with the rule?
He wouldn't want to be trapped in a 30-year labor contract because of a loan.
And he would never have signed a contract pledging his labor for 30 years. All he did was enforce the terms of a contract signed voluntarily by others.
The whole concept that bondage, like slavery, is unethical. It's legal under international law where I'm from.
Ignoring your irritating sense of moral superiority, this is interesting. I'm curious, how do people escape poverty where you come from?
It's customary to take out a loan to buy a house and in some places to pay for an education.
I see. And how long might it take such a person to repay their debt?
It depends, typically decades, sometimes their entire life.
I fail to see how your system of loans is significantly different to a debt bondsman signing over his labor for 30 years.
Fair enough.
Now tell me, what other sins do you believe I have overlooked?
It's no wonder people say the gods are cruel. This just shows how unreliable and subjective your moral code is. You're no better at judging right from wrong than any human.
Do you honestly think you could do better?
No, but that's my point. Nobody's grasp of right and wrong is so perfect they can be trusted with all its power. You've become a tyrant.
I should strike you down for that.
And if you did, you'd be proving my point.
Now, did you have any other questions before your reckoning?
Let's talk about something else.
Very well.
That's all the questions I had.
Good. Then now it is time for your reckoning. Only, it seems, something is wrong. It has long been within my power to see to the hearts of mortals and weigh their deeds in life. But when I peer into you, I see only a blank slate, as if you did not exist until you appeared in this city. How is this possible? Charon, where did you find this one?
I do not remember ferrying you. How did you come here?
Maybe you're getting forgetful in your old age.
You would have us believe that my servant merely forgot bringing you here.
I misspoke. I arrived here in about 2,000 years. Actually, yes.
That sounds improbable to me. Charon, does this mortal speak the truth? Or should I strike him down where he stands?
Perhaps. The waters of the River Lane are known to have that effect.
I will take you at your word. But as long as your past remains shrouded in mystery, it seems I must put your reckoning on hold. But answer this. Why have you come here? What is it you seek?
I like to put an end to the golden rule.
Your hubris is amusing, so I will allow you to make your case. But I warn you, if you anger me or waste my time with lies or wrong-headed arguments, you face death here. So, tell me, why should I put an end to the so-called golden rule?
The golden rule is corrupting the city and ensuring you'll never win the wager.
How so? And be specific. You have made a grave allegation, and I expect you to back it up.
Rufus has become so paranoid that he's jumping at shadows like Virgil's sexuality.
He is a volatile and confused fellow, that one.
Menelaus has trapped people in dead bondage by convincing them that rebelling would break your law.
His cruelty does seem to grow greater by the day.
That's all the examples I can think of.
Pathetic. You will need to do a lot better than that.
How can you expect to live without sin if you can't do it yourself?
That is a very serious accusation, mortal. What sin have I committed? What evidence do you have to support it?
You've given terrible punishment to hundreds of people, some for minor sins, and some who committed no sins at all.
Every one of those people was guilty of failing to ensure their peers lived virtuously. They failed collectively, and so they were punished collectively. The Romans understand this, as did the Greeks before them.
If our position were reversed, you wouldn't want me to punish you for the sins of other people.
Ah, but I am a god, and you are a mortal. Why would you expect me to treat you as I treat my own kind? You are not a peer. You are not a respected equal. Let me ask you this. Do you treat insects as you wish to be treated? Do you care for their well-being as you would your fellow man? Do you ensure they have food and shelter and protection from predators? Do you give them rights?
No.
Of course not, because that would be absurd, just as it would be absurd for me to treat your kind as equals.
What makes your kind superior to mine?
Where to begin? Our lifespans exceed yours by thousands of years, in which time we accumulate vast wisdom and a mastery of technology you cannot begin to imagine.
Why does wisdom and technology make you superior?
Because that is the source of our power over you.
So you think you're not obliged to treat us fairly because you're more powerful than us?
You could say that.
What was the Roman Stoic said? Treat your inferior as you would wish your superior to treat you.
My kin have no superiors.
But didn't say Jupiter was your leader? There's a hierarchy within your kin.
That is true. Go on.
So you're treating humans the way you would wish Jupiter to treat you?
Make your point, mortal.
I'm saying, if you can follow your own rules, how can you expect humans to?
Let me ponder that for a moment. If you are right, then it would follow that all this time I have been in the wrong. But no, the very thought of it grieves me. How can I accept your argument when doing so would make me a tyrant and a monster?
You're not a monster, you're human and you made a mistake.
Wait, what? What are you saying?
Humans make mistakes, it's our nature.
You have spoken eloquently, and yet, if what you say is true, it follows that my wager was fatally flawed from the beginning. But that would mean Jupiter, Proserpina's father, who knew more about you than anyone, proposed a wager I could never win. Why would he do that?
Perhaps he wanted you to abandon the wager so Proserpina would be free from you?
Perhaps. But if that was so, surely I would have sensed his deception. How could I have been so blind for so long?
Perhaps when you took on your human form, you took on some of your human foibles as well.
Your words sting me, mortal. But perhaps it is what I deserve. As difficult as this is to admit, I have suspected as much for a long time now. And I cannot deny it any longer. I've been so fixated on taking my beloved to Elysium that every time one of you sinned, it wore away my hope of being with her again. In time, I began to despise your kind for making her believe that you could ever be better than you are. But my rage was not born of malice, quite the opposite. Everything I have done, I did because I loved her. Who knew this empathy of yours, which you celebrate so much, could have such a dark underside? This has gone on too long. It is time for me to let go of this form, of her, of all of you. But know this.
We did it, boys!
Abandon the wager and leave for Elysium. Neither she nor your kind may ever ascend.
We just want to return to the world.
Very well. I will have Charon make arrangements to ferry the others. But as for you, be aware you will be separated from the rest.
Why?
Once this exodus begins, the events that brought you to this moment will never have taken place, and you will have created a paradox. What will become of you is difficult to predict, But that is the risk you have taken by interfering in the natural flow of time. Now, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Farewell, mortal.
So this is the best way to essentially convince him to let everybody go. Another way you can do it is if you try to attack him, you can grab something from Proserpina and force him to be like, "Oh shit! We're gonna have to redo this for all eternity, won't we?"
Hi there. Gave me a bit of a fray. Thought I was in here alone. I'm Al.
Alworth, I came in here to find you.
Well, here I am. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
I'm games with Nick.
Oh, did that lady in the forest send you in here after me? I guess I lost track of time, learning about the history of this place, and it is extraordinary. I'm fairly certain you and I are the first people to set foot in this city for about 2,000 years. Fortunately for us, the last person in here was a Roman man named Galerius, who inscribed an account into a tablet. Apparently, there was a community of 20-something people trapped in here, and living in fear of a curse they called the Golden Rule. They believed that if even one person sinned, an unknown god would cast them all into gold, like the 1,000 people who'd lived here before them. Then, one day, just as Galerius had finished praying for a good harvest at the shrine of Proserpina, an oracle appeared, said barely a word, and entered the temple of the mysterious god, this one here, and demanded an audience. And the doors just opened up to him. Nobody knows what went on in there, but Galerius wrote the oracle must have been more persuasive than Odysseus, because the next thing he knew, the ground shook, and the voice of that god rang out over the city. The many have suffered long enough. Unfortunately, Galerius' account just sort of stops after that, leaving a lot of questions unanswered. What became of him, and the other people who lived here? What happened to all the golden statues? And did this mysterious oracle single-handedly undo the curse that had terrorized people for hundreds of years?
These Romans are crazy.
I don't know, it reads like an earnest account to me. Anyway, I think I found a way out through the aqueduct that brought water into the city. Follow me.
I'm right behind you. Dum 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 dum. Yep, he's sealing that.
I'm gonna pause here for a moment.
Yep, good idea. I wasn't even gonna talk to you about it, but you insisted. Ooh, the popping is pretty bad at this point.
You're back. But you're alone. Does that mean you didn't find Al?
Oh, I found him. He'll be here in a moment.
What a relief. Thank you so much. I was beginning to think you'd both become trapped in there. Why don't you tell me what you discovered while we wait?
I discovered you're not who you said you were. I remember meeting you 2,000 years ago.
Ah, I see.
Oh, Jesus, that is
I
fucking
thought you
creepy.
Well, now you know. I suppose you have questions.
Who are you, really?
You can just call me Charon, if you like. I am sorry I was not completely honest with you when we first met.
This
I
is
do
some
not
Star
enjoy
Trek
deceiving.
spooky shit.
Believe me, I do not. But I have learned, from 5,000 years of experience, that most people find comfort in familiarity, in gradual change, and coming to see the truth in their own time.
What truth is that?
That you died, of course. You were dead when I brought you here. My role, as the servant of the god of the underworld, has always been to assist the chosen to cross the threshold from the land of the living to the land of the dead.
How did I die?
Usually, when people do not remember how they died, It is because they suffered a terrible trauma. Most souls would rather not remember. Ask yourself honestly, do you really want to know?
Yes, I want to know.
As you wish. You were murdered. You were exploring an old tomb when you discovered a cache of forgotten relics, including 2 silver coins of ancient origin. Unfortunately, as you emerged into daylight, you were set upon by 2 thieves. A nearby hiker saw the scuffle break out and leapt to your aid, trying to help you recover your bounty. You both fought bravely, but your assailants were armed, and you were not. There was nothing you or your ally could have done. He died instantly at the scene, and you followed a few hours later. That man's name was Al Worth.
Yeah,
You were
figured
each
as
in
much.
possession of a sacred coin, called Karen's Opal by some, and so it was my duty to bring you here.
Should have said the coins Al and I had were the last in existence. What does it mean for you?
It means I am now bereft of purpose. There is nobody else to ferry here, nobody to keep you company. After 5,000 years, the underworld has finally run its course.
What's so special about these coins?
Perhaps you have heard the tales of the Greeks and Romans bearing their dead with a coin in their mouths to pay the ferryman for passage across the river. Well, those stories contained a seed of truth, but not any coin would do. A long time ago, my master created 1,000 silver coins and had me distribute them across the world. My orders were simple. Whenever a person died in possession of a coin, I was to locate them and ferry them here.
Yes, Blue mentioned that my coin was the last in existence. What does that mean for you?
It means I am now bereft of purpose.
Yeah, we just had this
There is
conversation.
nobody else to ferry here, nobody to keep you company. After 5,000 years, the underworld has finally run its course.
Can you return us to the land of the living?
I see no point in keeping you here, but I have to ask one thing. That you keep this to yourself.
Look! Here comes Al now. Al! It's so good to see you. You were gone so long I thought I'd never see you again.
Kinda lost track of time in there. You wouldn't believe what we found. The ruins of a long-forgotten city. And there was a tablet describing an oracle who confronted a god and undid an ancient curse.
Sounds like quite a story, and I look forward to hearing all about it. But you two look exhausted. Why don't you hop in my boat and rest while I ferry you back to civilization?
Sounds good to me.
And you? Are you ready to go home?
Alright, Karen, carry us home. One year later. This is a nice museum.
Hey, you made it. It's great to see you again. I read your book. And
You look very different than you did a
I guess
few
there weren't
minutes
really
ago,
few
but
theories
okay.
about the underworld. Anyway, after everything you've been through, I thought you might appreciate some good news. So after we got back to the real world, I started doing some research into the people mentioned in Galerius' tablet. And I found something strange. I'm sorry I've been so cryptic. I've been dying to tell you, I just really wanted you to see this for yourself. Why don't you head on down there? I'll catch up with you at the other end.
Alright.
Oh, hello. You're finally here.
Oh, I'm glad that that quest just because this means they're together. Galerius, what are you doing here?
It's a crazy story. After you disappeared, Karen appeared and told us she was returning us to the world. Even gave us some coins to help us start our lives over. Only, for some reason, she returned us to your world instead of ours. Anyway, I know we only ever had that one conversation, and I wasn't even sure if you'd remember me, but I wanted to say thanks for freeing us from the underworld and giving us a second chance at life.
What are you doing with yourself these days?
Oh, I used Charon's gift to buy a farm in Umbria. Got a villa on it too, with enough room for Dooley, of course. It's hard work, but I sleep soundly every night. I'm finally my own man, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
You're with Equithia now?
I know! I can't believe my luck either. But we're engaged and living together. We're planning to get married next spring. If you're gonna be around, we'd love to see you there.
I love that. Count me in. It was good to see you again, Galerius.
Of course, there's a whole museum full of people waiting for a chance to thank you, so you better keep moving. We'll speak again soon, my friend.
It's gonna be a lot of chats.
You're here. It's so wonderful to see you again.
Good to see you too, Equithia.
So, you're the hero who somehow vanquished the last of the Roman gods. As I'm a priestess, you realize you've put me out of work. I'm just teasing. Actually, and it still feels a little sacrilegious to say this, I'm finding life after religion quite enjoyable.
What are you doing with yourself these days?
Galerius and I are engaged and expecting.
Oh.
Just bought a lovely villa in the countryside with room for a large family, and Dooley too, of course. It feels like the world has just opened up for us. There's so much to learn, and so many more possibilities for our children than we ever imagined. We're just so thankful for what you did for us. For all of us.
How's Livia?
Oh, it's sweet of you to ask. She recovered nicely. In fact, she's here somewhere, if you'd like to ask her yourself.
I'll do that. It was good to see you again, Equithia.
See you at the wedding, I hope.
What's up, Dooley?
Hello, I'm Dooley.
I remember who you are, Dooley.
Galerius said you're very nice and a big helper. Thank you for getting us out of the bad place. I didn't like it.
What are you doing with yourself these days?
I live at Galerius and Equitia's house. They look after me now and help me remember when I forget things, like brushing my teeth.
It was good seeing you again, Dooley.
Bye bye.
What else do we have?
Hi there. You are here. It's nice to finally meet you.
Hey, Lucretia.
Lucy is fine. I'm making an effort to blend in, as you can see. We are all trying to keep a low profile. If the world knew we died 2,000 years ago and were suddenly brought back to life 12 months ago, they'd never leave us alone. Speaking of which, I wanted to say thank you in person. I'd say the gods smile on you, but I hear you drove the last of them off. So,
What are you with yourself these
I'm
days?
studying to get into medical school. As much as I resented the responsibility of keeping everyone in the city alive, when it ended, I realized I missed it. So I guess I'll just keep saving the world, if begrudgingly, one patient at a time.
Hello, viewers. Sorry for what is about to happen, but I have a call that I need to take, so I will put you in the BRB screen. Probably going to be about 10 to 15 minutes.
Just sweat. You're like, oh, done. Cool. That was easy. Yeah, as if.
In the end, I was powerless, but Ashina will rise once more. The dragon blood surging through her veins. With this, Ashina's long night comes to an end. beautiful grandchild. This was your last wish. To see Ashina return from the great beyond. Which means Sekiro. I must destroy you. Count Sekiro!
Not in a rush. Oh. Okay. It's not about remembering patterns. Okay, no, that I gotta run away when he does that. Okay, yep. Coming back. Okay, that's one pip. I feel like to me, this second phase is the hardest. I'm sorry I missed the Mikiri here, but... Cool boy. Cool boy. Oh, that was a jump. Oh boy, was not expecting that. Did not. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. Okay. It's alright. It's alright. It's just mental damage. It's all mental damage. There we go. Getting lightning reversal correctly makes Ishin so much easier. And I think this is gonna do it. Yep, I did it. We did it. First try. I am.
Not allow Ashina to be crushed.
Just sweat. We're like, oh, done. Cool. That was easy. Yeah, as if.
In the end, I was powerless, but Ashina will rise once more. The dragon blood surging through her veins. With this, Ashina's long night comes to an end.
Pitiful grandchild. This was your last wish. To see Ashina return from the great beyond. Which means Sekiro. I must destroy you. Count Sekiro!
I'm not in a rush. Oh. Okay. It's not about remembering patterns. Okay, no, that I gotta run away when he does that. Okay, yep. Coming back. Okay, that's one pip.
Now my blood born.
I feel like to me, the second phase is the hardest. I'm sorry I missed the Mikiri there, but... Cool boy. Cool boy. Oh, that was a jump. Oh boy, was not expecting that. Did not. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. Okay. It's alright, it's alright, it's just mental damage. It's all mental damage. There we go. Getting lightning reversal correctly makes Ishin so much easier. And you know, I think this is gonna do it. Yep, I did it. We did it. First try. Wow, I am. No sweat. You're like, oh, done, cool. That was easy. Yeah, as if.
In the end, I was powerless, but Ashina will rise once more. The dragon blood surging through her veins. With this, Ashina's long night comes to an end.
Pitiful grandchild. This was your last wish. To see Ashina return from the great beyond. Which means Sekiro. I must destroy you. Count Sekiro.
Not in a rush. Oh. Okay. It's not about remembering patterns. Okay, no, that I gotta run away when he does that. Okay, yep. Coming back. second phase is the hardest.
Alright, Seraph didn't expect a break, but sometimes you just get a phone call. Where's Yulia?
Oh, she didn't make it. She died from poison while you were in the Great Temple. It was very sad. She was a good woman and a friend.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It wasn't your fault. Decius is to blame. He's here somewhere too. Not that anyone would talk to him. I'm not even sure how he got invited.
It's good to see you, Lucy.
You too. Don't be a stranger.
Yeah, I regret not saving Opus and Yulia this time around, because this was the time that mattered.
I take it you're the Oracle. Thanks for coming.
Good to see you again, Cynthia.
Actually, I changed my name to Cynthia. I didn't want to be associated with Sentius after what happened. I'm not sure if you heard, but after you drove Pluto off, Proserpina emerged from the Great Temple. She knew right away what none of us had figured out about that psychopath. He'd been keeping my little sister locked up in the upper cistern all that time. But he's been dealt with. You know what? The important thing is, we'll never see him again.
What are you doing with yourself these days?
Anything I want. I'm a woman of means in a vast new world. I can go wherever and do whatever I please. Of course, I mostly just stay in my villa and have my servant Alexa summon things for me, because it's just awful out there. Barbarians everywhere.
What happened to Sentius?
He's still there, all alone. The last golden statue in the underworld. Trapped in a metal shell, slowly losing his mind until the end of time. Eternal torment. Just what he deserves, if you ask me.
Yep, no good. Good to see you again, Cynthia.
You too. See you around.
Horatius. We see you're in the military.
I'm Horatius.
Hi,
I
Horatius.
understand we have you to thank for giving us a second chance at life. And reuniting Scintilla with us as well. So, thank you.
What are you doing with yourself these days?
I'm living up north and studying in the military academy in Modena. I'm going to be an officer one day. The world's changed a lot. But some things stay the same. Would you believe we're still studying military tactics from my time? Alexander the Great, Caesar, Hannibal Barca. Still, I have to keep challenging myself to let go of old ways of thinking and embrace the new. As Seneca wrote, the ones who pioneered our paths aren't our masters, but our guides.
I'm sorry I never got to see your girl again.
Ah, you remembered that. Thank you. I grieved for a time, but that's done. In the words of Epictetus, as those who rode behind triumphant generals remind them they are mortal, remind yourself your precious one isn't one of your possessions, but something given for now, not forever.
Well said.
Thanks.
It was good to see you again, Horatius.
And you. Farewell.
Okay.
Greetings. You must be the legendary Oracle. It is a sincere privilege to finally make your acquaintance. I am Georgius.
Good to see you, Horatius.
I am told we have you to thank for freeing us from Hades, and for that I am most grateful.
What are you doing with yourself these days?
I am reacquainting myself with Greece. It has changed so much over the last 2000 years, I barely recognize it. This is at once heartbreaking and thrilling. Perhaps one day, once I have seen all of this new Greece and sampled her delights, I will settle down in Santorini in a villa overlooking the Azure-Aegean Sea. I hope you will join me there and regale me with the story of how you faced off against the fearsome god of the underworld and won.
Consider me there. I'm not gonna ask what happened to Fabia because I know she died. So yeah, no.
I take it you're the oracle everybody's talking about. It's a pleasure to finally meet you.
We met before, though I wouldn't expect you to remember it.
We have. I'm sorry, I don't remember. In any case, I'm Philip. I never thought I'd leave that cave, let alone the city. And now I'm living in the 21st century. What a time to be alive. And it seems I have your Catabasis to thank for it.
What are you doing with yourself these days?
I'm working as a consultant to the Faculty of Classics at Cambridge University, helping fill the odd gap in their knowledge. Not that I need the money, but I do love being around enlightened minds again.
It's good to see you again.
Sincere thanks once again.
Some soiree, innit?
I'm not gonna even talk
Good
to you,
evening.
jerk.
You're here. It's so lovely to see you again.
Nice to see you too, Octavia.
I'm thankful that you're here. I was sure the person who drove off the last pagan god would have more important things to do than visit the likes of us. But thank you for coming and for saving our lives. What you did was extraordinary, and I'll never forget it.
What are you doing with yourself these days?
I'm living in Rome again, in a charming little flat by the Tiber. I'm not far from my old place. Oh, and I'm training to be a crisis counselor. After we lost Ulpius, I spent a lot of time reflecting on what I could have done differently. I couldn't shake the feeling that if I'd just found the right words, he'd still be with us today. In the end, I decided to devote the...
It wasn't your fault.
So I'm...
It was me, really. Good to see you again.
One...
Greetings.
Good to see you looking well, Livia.
Thank you for your kind words and for liberating us all. In all the time I was in the underworld, I never once imagined that I might end up in a place so much like Elysium.
What are you doing with yourself these days?
I'm recovering. Octavia was kind enough to let me stay with her for a while. At least until I'm well enough to be independent again. She still talks wistfully of you.
Read any good poems lately?
Ah, you remember that. I'm a little tired of Ovid, but that's all right. I have 2,000 years worth of poetry to catch up on now. I'm already up to the 19th century, and am quite enjoying the work of a fellow named Poe. I think I may have found a kindred spirit. Men have called me mad, but the question is not yet settled whether madness is or is not the loftiest intelligence.
Well said. It was good to see you again.
Farewell, friend.
The Decius I'm gonna ignore.
It is an honor to finally meet you, Oracle.
Thanks, Kabash.
You know my name? Oh, of course. You are an oracle. You know many things. I too would like to offer my thanks for releasing us from that place, and for your role in bringing us here. This world is truly wondrous.
What are you doing with yourself these days?
For a time, I returned to Alexandria, but they have no need of another fisherman, and I came to see there is nothing for me there. Instead, I have decided to follow the custom of your youths and backpack the world. It is a great adventure, and I have met many people from many cultures. I spent the first 25 years of my life avoiding the 42 sins that would deny me access to the afterlife. Now, I think it is...
Wow, that's very specific. Sounds like you earned it.
Indeed.
It was good to see you again. Who else do we have? Virgil.
It's so nice to finally meet you. I've heard so much about you.
Good to see you, Virgil.
I wanted to thank you personally for getting us out of there.
What are you doing with yourself these
I'm
days?
studying to be an architect again, and living in a beautiful flat in Rotterdam, just down the river from Nijmegen, where I grew up. Of course, it's improved.
Oh, you are Dutch.
Gleaming futuristic buildings and clean streets full of educated, accepting people. You natives of the 21st century have no idea how fortunate you are.
Well, it's good to see you again.
If you're ever in the Netherlands, I'd be happy to show you around. It's the least I could do.
I'll just take you up on that. And
Hello there.
you must be Scintilla.
Oh, I go by Gabriella now. I didn't want to be reminded of that monster every time I heard my own name.
Which monster?
You didn't hear. My adoptive father, Sentius, locked me up in the upper cistern to stop me from escaping. After you drove Pluto off, Proserpina came and released me, and that monster got what was coming to him.
I'm sorry, I had no idea.
Don't worry. Nobody did.
Well, actually, I did know, but we just didn't engage with it in our playthrough. What are you doing with yourself these days?
I'm living by myself on a little vineyard in Umbria. It's something Ulpius and I used to talk about doing when we got out. And I thought...
Oh, now I feel bad again.
But it's been hard. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's just not the same without him. Mostly...
This is a bummer.
Oh, thanks.
Let's just move on. Alright.
There you are. I hope you enjoyed that. Now, there's one more person I wanted to introduce you to. I think you know her.
Yeah.
Sorry if I frightened you. Just a little joke I've been saving for a long, long time.
I recognize that voice.
Allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Proserpina, former goddess of the cycle of life and renewal, and now a regular mortal. I wanted to meet you in person, and thank you for freeing all these people, and me. I hate to think what would have happened to us without your intervention.
You were whispering to me all along?
Indeed. Suffice it to say that while Pluto was controlling the eyes and ears of each golden statue, I was able to control their tongues and whisper to you when he was distracted. I am sorry my messages were so cryptic. There were only ever brief windows in which I could speak to you without being detected.
You did what you could. Thank you. Well, you created a time loop?
I did. I may have given up my immortality.
Oh, makes sense.
As the goddess of the cycle of life and renewal, after witnessing Pluto punish countless poor souls over thousands of years, I knew this generation, the final wave, would not survive. So I tried to give them a way to buy more time. A second chance. Rather, as many second chances as they needed to avoid his wrath.
What became of Pluto?
I don't know what happened to him. I haven't heard from him, and I rather hope it stays that way.
What became of Karen?
Oh, she inherited dominion over the underworld. Last time we spoke, she was working on a new world of some kind. She wouldn't say what it was, but I'd be surprised if you don't run into her again. I imagine we all will, one day.
It was nice meeting you.
And you, although it feels like I've known you forever. Oh, and one last thing. Do you remember all those golden statues scattered throughout the city?
Of course.
Good, because they remember you. Well done, my friend. Of all the heroes who ever journeyed to the underworld and returned, none came close to achieving what you did. Hercules, Orpheus, Theseus, and Aeneas would be proud.
Ending number 4. Yeah, I feel bad not having saved the people that I could save on this final playthrough. I didn't think of the fact that they just wouldn't appear in the final thing, but we hope you enjoyed The Forgotten City. We'd love to make even better games in the future, and you can help by recommending The Forgotten City to a friend or writing a review. The more people play our games, the more we can level up. If you'd like to be the first to know when we announce our next project, please connect us with us here. We will not do that. But yeah, and so here it is. That was The Forgotten City, a wonderful adaptation of an original Skyrim mod, which we will get to at some point in our Skyrim playthrough. I just love the time loop aspect of it. I think it's just really fun and it's very well crafted. Just trust me, don't try to complete everything in one cycle, or if you do, grab the guy that sprints the fastest, because otherwise it's a pain in the ass. Anyway, I'll be back in probably about an hour and a half with some Final Fantasy VII. I'm gonna start that up. So in the meantime, thank you for watching. You can find me at twitch.tv/gamesofnick and youtube.com/gamesofnick. And until next time.